My palms smelled like soap and medicine, and I wondered how fast a person can be erased. I'm Milena Ellis. I'm 32 and I work as a medical billing specialist at the pediatric clinic off Elm Street. 9 weeks ago, when hospice started for my dad, I took unpaid leave and moved on to his living room couch. I kept a spiral notebook on the coffee table with a pen tucked into the coil. Numbers don't argue back, so I wrote everything down. Dad's name is Joseph Ellis. He was 66 and a mechanic who kept every oil change receipt in a labelled envelope. He taught me to stack wrenches in order and to say thank you when somebody hands you a tool. Tools go back where you found them, he'd say, and I knew he meant more than tools. Victoria is my older sister. She's 35 and very good at sounding in charge. She visited with the energy of a camera crew, leaned in the doorway for 5 minutes, tapped our dad's shoulder with 2 fingers, and posted photos with captions like "Caregiver Life" and "Family First." Sometimes she brought tulips that needed trimming and a new vase. The tulips drooped by morning. The vase collected dust. She looked good in the pictures. I learned the rhythm of pills and pudding. Crush, mix, coax a swallow. I thickened water with powder so he wouldn't choke. I wiped his mouth and tried not to make him feel small. The hospice nurse came on Mondays and Thursdays and taught me how to turn him so his skin wouldn't break. When he was awake, he'd find my hand and leave it under his, heavy and warm. He would say, "Kiddo, keep the peace if you can." I promised I would try, but not at any cost. He nodded like he understood the difference. The notebook grew lines. I wrote my name at the top of each page, and the date. March, week 1. Electric bill, $96 paid on my card because the auto-pay bounced. Pharmacy run, $312 for meds after the copay, 3 different pills, and the liquid morphine. Groceries, 180, eggs, broth, pudding cups, bananas, instant mashed potatoes, Gatorade, incontinence supplies and wipes, $74 from the big box store because they were cheaper by the case. Clinic copay from his last visit before hospice, $60, gas, $58 from all the back and forth. Thickener and feeding syringes, $82. I totaled it at the bottom, $860. I drew a box around the number so I wouldn't lose it. I still paid the rent on my little 1-bedroom across town, 12 minutes away without lights, but I only went there to shower and grab mail. Dad's porch still smelled like his aftershave at night, a clean barbershop smell that made my throat tight. Maria Lopez is Dad's younger sister. She's 62, straight-talking and fair. She called every other evening to ask what we needed. She brought casseroles that reheated without fuss and labelled them with the date and heating instructions because she knows me. Her son, my cousin Roman Lopez, is 30. He stopped by on Sundays to take the trash to the curb and change a hard-to-reach light bulb. He didn't post a picture of either thing. Dad handled the paperwork when he still could. His will was in a manila folder in the desk, the title to his old pickup clipped to it with a rusty binder clip. Last fall, he told us he named me and Victoria co-executors. "Both of you," he said, when Victoria asked if he was sure. "Checks and balances." I wrote that down too, a note in the margin. On the last afternoon, the house was quiet, except for the oxygen concentrator and the porch fan that rattled on low. I was smoothing his blanket after changing him when he exhaled like a tire losing air. His fingers tightened on my shoulder, and then they were just fingers. I waited and counted my chest too big for my ribs, then I called hospice. I washed his face. I changed his shirt. I opened a window because the nurse said it was okay. My phone buzzed before I'd changed his sheets. It was Victoria. "I'll handle the obituary," followed by a link to a draft template she'd found and a heart emoji. I looked at the screen, then at Dad, then back at the screen. I typed "he just passed" and hit send. 3 dots blinked, vanished, blinked again. I didn't know yet that we'd end up across a funeral home table from Francis Ward, 54, a calm man who speaks in complete sentences. I didn't know yet that a county clerk named Gabriella Quinn, 41, would be the only person on the phone who made the rules sound simple. I only knew my hands smelled like soap and medicine, and the world had already reached for the part of the story it wanted to hold. Francis slid a folder across the table like it weighed something it didn't want to. The funeral home office smelled like coffee and carpet cleaner. He spoke slowly, the way people do when words might break. We'll need authorizations, the burial permit, and the obituary submitted to the paper by tomorrow, if you want a weekend service. Victoria sat up straight and answered first, like she'd been rehearsing. Of course, I'll handle the obituary. I've already started drafting. She smiled at Francis, then at me, like we were all on the same page. I set Dad's manila folder on the table and pulled out the title to the truck and the will, because paperwork answers more questions than I can. Francis glanced at the will, skimmed, and nodded. Co-executors, he said, tapping the line with a gentle finger. Okay, for the burial permit, the county requires both of your signatures. It's standard since there are 2. Victoria's smile tightened. Well, I'm available all day. Francis didn't look at either of us when he said, I'll need both. He started asking for details, full name, date of birth, place of birth, mother's maiden name. I answered the ones I knew, and when Francis didn't know how to spell Lopez, I spelled it. Victoria kept her tone bright and productive. We're aiming for dignity, she said at least twice. My phone buzzed with a new email. Obituary draft, the subject read. I opened it. The paragraph about survivors said, he is survived by his devoted daughter, Victoria, and his sister, Maria. No mention of me. The body of the obituary talked about his love of cars and how family rallied around him in his final weeks. In the second draft paragraph it said, care led by Victoria. I read it twice to make sure I wasn't missing a line. Francis pushed a pen toward us. Initial here that you've received the price list and selected services. He waited, patient as a stoplight. I initialed where I was supposed to. When we stood to leave, he said, call me if you have questions. I'm here till 6. In the parking lot, the sun made everything look flatter than it felt. My phone buzzed again. A Venmo request from Victoria. $400. Note, catering, everyone will be hungry. We'll square up later. I clicked through. The vendor name in her screenshot was a place that does small weddings with tiny sandwiches and a lot of green garnish. I pictured paper plates in Dad's kitchen and the way our neighbour Mr. Connolly eats anything you hand him as long as it's hot. I called the county number the hospice nurse had given me for vital records and asked for the clerk who handles burial permits. This is Gabriella, a calm voice said. My dad passed yesterday. The funeral home said both co-executors have to sign the burial permit. There isn't a way for one of us to authorize a loan, is there? No, she said, not unkindly. With co-executors named, we need both signatures or a court order. Keeps it clean. I'm sorry for your loss. Thank you, I said. I appreciate a clear answer. I walked to my car and opened the notebook on the hood. On the last page, the box around 862 yen looked like it belonged there. Electric 96, meds 312, groceries 180, supplies 74, copay 60, gas 58, thickener and syringes 82. I took a picture of the page and the receipts stacked underneath, then sat in the driver's seat and typed. I texted Victoria. I'll sign the burial permit after 3 things. 1. Reimburse the $862 I spent on Dad's care, receipts attached. 2. Correct the obituary to include me as his daughter and remove the care led by line. 3. Agree in writing to split the pickup sale 50-50 as co-executors. Once those are done, I'll sign immediately. The 3 dots appeared, vanished, then came back like a heartbeat. Her reply landed hard. You're heartless. Are you holding Dad hostage? This is about love, not ledger books. I stared at the screen. Another text followed. People are flying in. I've already booked catering. The optics will be a nightmare if you drag your feet. Do you want that? I scrolled back to the obituary draft and the blank space where my name should have been. I thought about Dad's hand on mine, heavy and warm, and the way he said, "Tools go back where you found them," meaning do the right thing even when no one's watching. I typed, "I'm not blocking anything. I'm asking for basic fairness and accuracy." She sent a photo of a menu, tea sandwiches in neat rows, lemon bars dusted with sugar. "This is what grown-ups do," she wrote. I took a breath. I sent the picture of my notebook page and the receipts. "This is what I did," I wrote. Then I put the phone on the passenger seat face up in case she decided to be reasonable. The screen lit again. "Last chance," she wrote. "Sign now, we'll square up later." I thought about Gabriella's voice, simple and steady. Both signatures or a court order. I typed, "I'm holding the line." Then I turned the key and drove home to Dad's house, where the porch still smelled like his aftershave, and the papers were exactly where he left them. The family thread lit up while I was at Dad's kitchen table, the manila folder open and his aftershave still faint in the air. Victoria. FYI, Milena is blocking Dad's burial. A waterfall of reactions, crying faces, prayer hands, a couple of thumbs down. An aunt wrote, "Girls, please, not now." Another added, "This is so sad." I didn't type. The last thing Dad needed was a public food fight. A new text popped up separately from Maria. "What is actually true? Don't perform it for the thread. Just tell me." I took a picture of the notebook page with the box around $862. Then I added photos of the receipts lined up by date. I followed with a screenshot from last month when I asked Victoria to come sit with Dad so I could work a shift, and she replied, "You're not our priority right now." I typed, "I told Francis I'll sign once 3 things happen: reimbursement for what I fronted, correct obituary to include me, and a simple written agreement to split the pickup 50-50. County says both signatures are required. That's all. Dots. Okay," Maria wrote. "Victoria asked me this morning to write a check to cover the cemetery opening fee until the estate account is set. I said yes because it's Dad. I'm calling the bank to stop payment. I'm not funding bad behaviour. Send me the funeral home's number." I sent Francis's card from my photos. "He's steady," I added. Back in the thread, Victoria wrote, "This is an embarrassment. People have flights. Vendors are scheduled." Roman finally chimed in. "I saw Milena's receipts. No signature without her terms. That's fair." Silence swirled. The emojis stopped. Victoria. "Roman, you don't know everything." Roman. "I know enough. Both signatures required. Pay her back, fix the obituary, split the truck. Then it moves." Maria joined the thread, brief and to the point. "I am not floating any checks. Handle this properly." A cousin I haven't seen in 2 years wrote, "Can we please not make this public?" Which was funny since we were already there. I still didn't type. My phone rang. Maria. "I called the bank," she said. "Stop payment is in. I also called the funeral home and told them I won't be the backstop anymore. Francis said he understood." "Thank you," I said. "I don't want this to be ugly. I want it to be clear." "That's the opposite of ugly," she said, and hung up to go stir something on her stove. I could picture her doing it, spoon tucked in the same drawer it has always been. Another text came in from Roman, this time directly to me. "Vic just asked me to put the cemetery fee on my card. I told her no. I called Francis myself, told him not to run anything for me. He said nothing moves without the permit anyway. Thank you, I wrote. Don't thank me for basic sense, he replied. You doing okay? Not really, but enough, I said. In the family thread, Victoria tried a new angle. Milena is weaponizing money during grief. I've already done so much of the planning. I scrolled back to the obituary draft with my name missing and stared at the line that called her devoted daughter, like there was only one of us. Then I typed in the thread finally, for clarity, I will sign once reimbursement is sent, 862 receipts above. The obituary is corrected to include me as his daughter and remove the care led by line, and we sign a one-page agreement to split the truck sale, 50-50, as co-executors, as Dad's will names us. These are normal, not punitive. I attached the screenshot from the county clerk's office webpage about co-executors needing both signatures. I didn't include Gabriella's name. I didn't need to. Aunt with the sighs. If this is what it takes to put Joseph to rest, then do it. Another aunt added a heart. No one liked Victoria's last message. Francis's name flashed on my screen. Voicemail first, then a text. No pressure, but a reminder that the permit deadline for a weekend service is tomorrow at noon. I am available to file as soon as I have both signatures. Please let me know if I can answer any questions. I sent him. Thank you. I will sign as soon as the 3 items are completed. I've communicated them. He responded. Understood. Victoria DM'd me separately, outside the family thread. You have no idea what you're starting. I looked at the manila folder, Dad's will with both our names on the executor line. The truck title clipped under it, the notebook with the tidy box around $862. Roman's simple. That's fair. Maria's choice to call the bank, not to shame, just to stop the bleeding. I typed back, I do. I put my phone face down and walked to the sink to rinse the mug that still had his coffee ring on the bottom. The house was quiet, the oxygen machine was gone, and the porch fan took over the small job of making air move. Outside, Mr. Connolly's screen door squeaked and shut. Normal noises. Inside, the story stopped being whatever someone said it was and started being what we could prove. I spent the afternoon walking room to room with my phone in one hand and Dad's notebook in the other. Living room, TV, make and model, recliner with the squeaky right arm, bookshelf with the carburetor manuals. Kitchen, the good knives Maria gave him at Christmas, the dented stockpot, the enamel mug with a chipped rim. Bedroom, dresser, 2 watches, the shoebox where he kept spare keys. Garage, red Craftsman tool chest, each drawer labelled, boxes of parts he swore he'd use. Driveway, the pickup, I took a photo of the VIN and the odometer and wrote both in the margin of the notebook. Documentation beats drama. I kept saying it in my head like a song I didn't want to forget. I didn't change the locks. I didn't move anything but papers. The manila folder with the will and the truck title went on top of the notebook. I told myself I would take the folder to my apartment and put it in the lockbox I use for my own documents. Executorship isn't flair, it's custody and records. I was sliding the folder into my tote when tyres crunched fast on the gravel. Victoria's car. She jumped out with her phone up and already recording. "What are you doing?" she asked too loud. "This is stealing. You can't just take Dad's things." I held the tote open so she could see the manila folder. "It's the will and the truck title. I'm securing the papers and photographing the house for inventory. We're both executors." "This is normal." She pushed her sunglasses into her hair and framed me in her screen. "Everyone is watching this. You're taking advantage while people are grieving." "Put your phone down, Vic," I said, calm as I could manage. "If you want to inventory together, great. I'm filming the rooms too. You can have copies of the photos and the list. But the will says co-executors. That means we both have responsibility." "Show me the will," she snapped. I slid it back out and held it so she could read the line with our names. She leaned in, then pulled back like paper could burn. "You're twisting this. He would want me to handle it." "He told us both," I said. "Checks and balances. I wrote it down." She laughed without smiling. "You are unbelievable." She panned her phone across the porch, then back to my face. "You're making this ugly." "Francis said we need both signatures for the permit," I said. "I'm ready to sign when the 3 items are done. Until then, I'm securing records and making an inventory." She lowered her phone a couple inches. "I'm not changing the obituary to fit your narrative." "It's not a narrative," I said. "It's my name." She flinched like that landed, then straightened. "You're going to regret this," she said, and turned away like a director calling cut. She got back in her car and drove off too fast, stones popping under the tyres. Inside, the house exhaled. I finished my loop and made a clean list, every room, summary at the end. I left the furniture where it sat. I locked the door behind me with Dad's key, checked the handle twice, and walked to the truck to snap one more photo of the odometer with the day's date visible on my phone screen. The sun caught the dust on the hood, and for a second it looked like glitter. Dad would have hated that. By the time I slid into my car, I had a missed call from the funeral home and a voicemail. Francis's voice was steady as always. "Hi, Milena, just checking in. I know this is a lot. The deadline for filing the burial permit to keep the weekend schedule is tomorrow at noon. No pressure, just clarity. If you have questions or need me to walk through anything, I'm here. Compassion, not pressure." I saved the message. My tote went in the passenger seat. I pulled the seatbelt across it and clicked it in. Silly maybe, but it made me breathe easier. On the way to my apartment, I hit a light and opened my messages. A notification from social media sat on top. Victoria had posted, "Hardest week of my life. Doing everything I can for someone who gave us everything. Pray for peace when people make grief about themselves. 100 hearts, 200, then 3. The comments blurred into the same soup of "stay strong" and "you're amazing." I didn't reply. I unfollowed the thread so my phone would stop lighting up with other people's feelings. At my place, I put the folder straight into the lockbox and then took it back out to make copies. The old printer on my desk woke up like a cat, grumpy at being needed. I scanned the will, the title, the notebook page with the box around 860 tools, the receipts lined up by date. I saved the files with names I'd recognise in a year. Will co-executors.pdf, title pickup.pdf, expenses hospice, and march.pdf. I printed a set for me and made a second set for Victoria because paper you can't argue with beats, texts you can twist. I flipped through the printouts to make sure each page was clean. The hum of the printer settled into the quiet of my apartment. I hit print on my ledger and every line made me calmer. I called the county again because I like the same answer twice before I bet anything on it. "Vital records, this is Gabriella. It's Milena Ellis. We spoke yesterday. Co-executors on my dad's estate. I just want to confirm again, for the burial permit, you need both signatures. There isn't a workaround." "That's correct," she said. "Both signatures or a court order. We don't do verbal authorizations." "Okay, thank you for being clear. At the counter we can accept you together or you can sign separately as long as we have both by the deadline. I'm sorry you're dealing with logistics on top of loss." "I appreciate it," I said, and hung up. I scrolled to Jordan's name and hit call. She picked up with, "Hey, how's your head?" "Full," I said. "I need a sanity check." "Shoot." I told her about the missing name in the obituary, the $1,400 catering request, the 3 terms, the county's rules. Jordan isn't a lawyer, but she's managed enough messy vendor contracts to know where things slip. "Don't argue in text," she said. "Put your terms in an email with attachments. Subject line that makes sense, bullet points, clear deadline." If she replies, it's all in one place when people start forgetting. Got it, I said. And the pickup. Draft a simple one-pager. You both sign that the net proceeds of the truck sale are split 50-50. No one's transferring title tonight. You're just agreeing how the money flows. I opened my laptop at the kitchen table. The scanner file names glowed in the folder. Will co-executors.pdf, title pickup.pdf, expenses hospicemarch.pdf. I added photos of the receipts and the notebook page with the box around 860 Tutlan. Then I wrote, subject, Dad's burial permit. Items to complete today for my signature. Victoria, as discussed at the funeral home, the county requires both co-executors' signatures on the burial permit. I will sign as soon as the following are completed. 1. Reimbursement of $860 for Dad's hospice-related expenses. I paid. See attached receipts and ledger page. 2. Correction of the obituary to include me as his daughter and removal of the care led by line. Please send updated text or PDF. 3. Signed agreement between us to split the net proceeds from the sale of Dad's pickup 50-50. See attached one-page draft. Once these are done, I'll meet you at the county office or sign separately this evening morning. The funeral home noted the deadline for a weekend service is tomorrow at noon. I'm not interested in debate, just accuracy and fairness. Please reply here with confirmations and attachments. Milena, I attached everything. For the one-pager, I kept it plain. We, co-executors of the estate of Joseph Ellis, agree the net proceeds from the sale of his pickup will be split equally, 50-50, between us. Net proceeds means sale price minus reasonable costs, towing, title transfer, listing fee, if any. 2 signature lines, date, our names printed. I reread the email twice and hit send. Time stamp, 4:26 p.m. The family thread pinged as if on cue. An aunt wrote, "Can we focus on honouring Joseph?" Another added, "Money comes and goes, love is forever," which is true and not helpful. I put the phone face down and lined up the black dress on my bed, checked the hem, found the shoes that don't make my toes numb. I set Dad's watch next to the dress and decided not to wear it. He hated when people wore things for show. Francis texted, "Checking in. If we can file first thing, we'll have no issue with the schedule." I replied, "I've sent my terms in writing. I'll sign as soon as those are met. Thank you." The apartment settled around me while the light thinned. I boiled pasta and ate, standing at the counter. Maria called just long enough to say, "I saw your email. Good, don't argue anywhere else." Roman sent a thumbs up and, a minute later, she asked me again to put the cemetery fee on my card. Told her the answer won't change. At 7, Victoria emailed back with nothing attached. "You've made this incredibly difficult," she wrote. "I've carried the emotional load while you tally receipts. We all know who was there." I typed, "I was there. That's the point. Please complete the 3 items." I did not hit send. I deleted the sentence and instead replied, "Please see my previous email for what's needed." County requires both signatures. 8 o'clock brought a few more be the bigger person messages in the thread from relatives who didn't visit once. I didn't pick them up. I took a shower, set my alarm for 6:30 and laid out a pen that never skips ink, the one Dad used to sign checks because he said it made him feel competent. At 9:18, an email from Victoria. "Obituary is already submitted." There was a PDF attached, same text as before, my name still missing. Care led by Victoria in bold, like it needed a spotlight. I forwarded it to Francis with, "This has errors. I have requested correction." He replied, "Understood. We can amend with the paper if needed." I printed the one-page pickup agreement and signed my line so she wouldn't be able to say I was stalling. I scanned it back in and sent it again. Here is my signed copy. Please add yours. The apartment was quiet enough to hear the fridge kick on and off. I set the pen next to my keys and sat on the couch with a blanket over my knees. Not tired, just done. At 10:42 p.m, my screen lit up with a text from Victoria. Final offer, sign or I go around you. Victoria's final offer, sign or I go around you, sat on my screen like a dare. I stared at it a second, then typed, there isn't a way around. County requires both signatures. I didn't add anything else. I set the phone on the counter and rinsed my plate. The apartment sounded like a clock. You don't notice it until you're trying to sleep. I checked my email again to make sure my message with the attachments and bullet points hadn't bounced. It hadn't. Read receipts weren't my style, but I could picture the subject line sitting at the top of her inbox. At 11:06 p.m, Maria texted me directly, I'm not funding bad behaviour. I told Vic again tonight, no cemetery fee from me until it's done right. A minute later, Roman, echoing my mum, I told Francis, no cemetery fee on my card. He said nothing files without your signature anyway. Then a second text, eat something, people forget to eat. I did, I wrote back. Thank you. I walked my notes to the desk and stacked them in an order that made sense. Will, truck title, signed copy of the pickup agreement with my signature, my ledger page with the box around $862. The pen sat next to my keys like a small promise. Midnight brought another buzz. Victoria. I talked to the paper. The obituary is already in layout. Then 2 more bubbles. You're making this impossible. Family is flying in. This is cruel. I opened her message and then closed it without responding. I had called the county. I had the answer. There isn't a way around a statute, and Gabriella wasn't going to magic a workaround because someone had a flight. At 12:32 a.m, Francis sent a text that didn't ask for anything. I'll be at my desk by 7 a.m. If you both sign early, I can file as soon as the office opens. Sorry you're carrying the logistics. Thank you, I wrote back. I'll be ready. I put the phone on Do Not Disturb, except for my starred contacts, Maria, Roman, and the funeral home's number. I washed my face and brushed my teeth on autopilot, the way you do when your body keeps its own list. In bed, I didn't sleep. I listened to the fridge hum, then click off, then hum again. Around 1:30, the screen lit with a banner from the family thread, someone posting a prayer gif. I turned the phone over. At 2:11 a.m, a new email from Victoria came through. The preview showed only, send me your Zelle. I sat up and replied with my phone number. 30 minutes later, she wrote, I'll reimburse $860 when you sign. Obituary stands. Then quickly after, sign the permit now and be reasonable. I didn't answer. I wasn't bartering for my own name. Another hour stretched and folded. I got up, drank water, sat back down. At 3:17 a.m, Maria again. If she contacts me about paying vendors, I'm saying no. Roman followed. She asked me to pick up food for the service, said I'd bring ice. I smiled in the dark despite myself. Bring nothing until we have a permit, I typed. He sent back a single check mark. At 3:57 a.m, my banking app chimed. Zelle, $900 received. Memo line, reimbursement. The extra $38 made me exhale. It meant she'd rounded instead of pinched. A text landed right after, you have your money. Another, an email forwarded from the paper with a PDF. I opened it. The obituary now said, he is survived by his daughters, Victoria and Milena, and his sister, Maria. The care-led by sentence was gone. The rest was the same. A third email arrived with a scanned signature at the bottom of my one-pager. We, co-executors, split 50-50. No commentary. Then a text. This is what you wanted. Sign today. I stared at the apology I didn't have. then noticed a short, separate line in her last email. "I'm sorry for the earlier draft." Tight as a knot, but still a knot she'd tied. I read it twice. It didn't need to feel warm to be true. I forwarded the corrected obituary to Francis. Received corrected PDF, funds received, agreement signed. He replied within 5 minutes. Apparently he slept like I did. "Understood. I'll be in early. County opens at 8:30. The apartment was still grey. I got up and put my phone on the charger by the door so I wouldn't forget it in the morning. I checked that the signed pickup agreement was in my tote, with the will and the title. I took a picture of the Zelle confirmation and dropped it into my receipts folder. Numbers don't argue back, but they do disappear if you don't pin them down. Before I lay back down, I checked my alarm set for 6:30 and nudged the pen so it pointed toward the door. I didn't sleep so much as drift. When the alarm finally sang, it felt like I'd just closed my eyes. The pen was still where I left it, ready not to skip. I was at the county building when the doors unlocked. The clerk counter was quiet, just the sound of a printer spitting labels in the back. Gabriella looked up and recognized me from the phone. "Milena." "Yes." I set my tote on the ledge. "We have everything." Victoria walked in a minute later, in a dark coat like she was going to a meeting. She didn't look at me. Gabriella asked for our IDs, checked the will copy I'd brought that showed co-executors, and slid the forms across. "Both signatures here," she said, tapping to X. "This authorises the burial and releases the permit." Victoria signed first with a flourish. I signed next with the pen I'd laid out last night. It didn't skip. Gabriella added a stamp and a seal that made a deep, official thunk. "I'm sorry for your loss," she said, and she meant it the same way she meant the rule, clean and simple. I texted Francis a photo. "Signed, on our way." He replied, "Thank you, I'll file immediately." We didn't talk in the elevator. Outside, the air felt like it had been wiped down. Victoria stopped by her car. "I sent the corrected obituary to the paper," she said flat. "The service time stands." "I saw it," I said. "Thank you. I'm not discussing the locks," she said, like a preemptive strike. "I'm securing the house after the service," I said. "You'll have a key. We both will." She opened her door. "Just don't pull stunts." "Documentation isn't a stunt," I said and started my car. By noon, Francis texted, "Permit filed, cemetery confirmed. Service at 2 remains on schedule." The chapel room at the funeral home was small, 10 rows, a table with framed photos, a vase of lilies that would smell like custard by evening. Mr. Connolly showed up in his best work boots and nodded at me, chin tight. Maria hugged me without small talk. Roman squeezed my shoulder once and sat down on the aisle. Francis kept everything moving without making it feel rushed. He read the order of service and nodded to me first. My palms were dry for once. I stood and told the story about the time Dad taught me to change a tyre off Highway 4 in the rain. How he handed me the jack like it was a baton and said, "Tools go back where you found them," and how I only understood later that it wasn't about tools at all. People smiled in the way that doesn't show teeth. I sat down and let the bench take my weight. Victoria stood next. Her eulogy sounded like an article, paragraphs polished, every sentence rounded off. She said legacy twice and community once. I let it float past like a radio in another room. It wasn't wrong, it just wasn't mine. After the last hymn, we hugged the neighbour ladies and the 2 men from Dad's old shop. Francis checked in softly. "Everything okay to proceed to the cemetery?" We both nodded. He didn't mention money in front of anyone. He didn't have to. He'd already handled the part that needed handling. When the last car pulled out, I headed to Dad's house. The locksmith truck was already there, a plain van with a magnetic sign. The guy, mid-40s with careful hands, shook mine. 4 exterior doors?" he asked. 2 deadbolts that don't match, I'll key them alike. That's fine, I said. I need 2 full sets and 1 spare. He worked while I stood on the porch with my notebook. The fan rattled on low. Victoria pulled up again but didn't get out. She watched from the driver's seat, phone in her hand, then finally came to the steps. "This is punitive," she said. "This is stewardship," I said. "Executors secure assets. It's in the handbook Francis gave us." She rolled her eyes and texted someone. The locksmith handed me the new keys on 2 rings and a labelled envelope with the spare. "Codes for the new deadbolts are here if you want to add a keypad later," he said. I held 1 ring out to Victoria. "You're set." She hesitated, then took it without meeting my eyes. "Where's the spare?" "In my lockbox until we set up the estate account," I said. "I'll also put a lockbox with a code on the back door so Maria can check the mail if needed. I'll text you the code when it's up." She made a noise that wasn't quite assent. Inside, I sat at the kitchen table and opened my notebook to a clean page. "Funeral home charges," I wrote at the top, and listed the items from Francis's invoice he'd emailed after the service. Basic services, transfer, cemetery opening and closing, permit fee, flowers we didn't order because we still had lilies. I added the locksmith fee with the receipt he handed me and stapled it to the page. I scanned the sheet with my phone and emailed it to Victoria with a subject line I'd recognise in a year. Estate initial costs.pdf. I attached the corrected obituary and the pickup agreement with both our signatures so everything lived in one thread. She started to type a reply, the little dots stuttering like a car that won't turn over. "We need to discuss allocations," popped up on my screen. I sent back, "All expenses will be paid from the estate account once opened. In the meantime, I fronted the locksmith. Receipt attached." 30 seconds. A new message. "Fine." Then after a beat, "Received." Francis called once more, end of day. "Permit filed, burial completed, chapel cleared. I'll send final paperwork tonight for your signatures, acknowledging charges to the estate." "Send them," I said. "I'll sign." The locksmith packed up. "Anything else?" he asked. "No," I said. "Thank you." He tipped his cap and left. I walked him out and locked the door behind him. The deadbolt slid smooth. The click echoed just a little in the hallway. For the first time in a long while, the house felt like it belonged to Dad again, not the story someone told about him. The envelope with the death certificates showed up at Dad's house the same morning Francis emailed the final paperwork. I signed my parts at the kitchen table and scanned them to him. He replied, "Received," and a note that the funeral home would invoice the estate once the account was open. I put the certificates in the manila folder and drove to the bank on Maple where I keep my own checking. The branch manager brought us into a glass box and slid a stack of forms across. Victoria was already there, hair perfect, pen clicking. "You'll need an EIN for the estate," the manager said. "I have it," I said. I'd applied online that morning and printed the confirmation. I handed over the will, the death certificate, our IDs, the EIN letter. He made copies and set up the estate of Joseph Ellis account with both of us as signers. We signed the signature card without looking at each other. He handed us a checkbook and a folder. "Please use this account exclusively for estate expenses and income," he said. "Keeps the accounting clean." "Clean is the goal," I said. On our way out, I told Victoria, "I'll put a realtor lockbox on the back door so Maria can check mail. I'll text you the code." "Fine," she said. No smile, no fight. Roman texted a photo of the truck in the driveway right after lunch with, "Buddy from the shop asked about it. He'll come by after work. Cash, no nonsense." "Bill of sale and title in my tote," I wrote back. "We both sign." At 5:30, a guy in steel toe boots pulled up in an older sedan. He walked around the pickup like he was reading it. Dad would have approved. Roman handed him the keys for a quick drive around the block. The buyer came back, nodded once, and said a number that felt fair. No haggling. We shook on it. "I'll need both signatures on the title," I said. "We're co-executors." "Whatever you need," he said, counting out bills at the kitchen counter in stacks of hundreds. I wrote a simple bill of sale with the date, VIN, odometer, amount, and both our names as sellers. We each signed the title exactly where the DMV wants it. I took pictures of both documents and emailed them to myself and Victoria with the subject line, Truck Docs Sale Completed.pdf. Roman helped him load a box of spare parts from the garage. When the taillights turned the corner, the driveway looked bigger. I drove straight to the bank with the cash and asked for a deposit to the estate account and a receipt. The teller counted it twice while I watched, then slipped the receipt into a sleeve. At the little desk by the window, I opened my notebook and wrote a new page. Estate income, pick-up sale, the amount, the deposit slip number. I added a line, reimburse locksmith, receipt attached, and filled in that figure from the stapled paper the locksmith handed me. I wrote a check from the estate account to myself for the locksmith amount, paper-clipped the receipt to it, and slid a copy into the folder for Victoria. Then I messaged her. Truck money deposited to estate. Reimbursed locksmith from estate per receipt. I can send your 50% of net proceeds tomorrow by cashier's check or transfer. Your preference. Cashier's check, she wrote. I want a paper trail. Me too, I replied. Back at Dad's, I snapped the lockbox onto the back door and texted the code to Victoria and Maria. Mail's been coming regular, Maria wrote back. I'll check Friday. That night at my apartment, I opened a spreadsheet and put the numbers where they go. Hospice expenses reimbursed by Victoria, logged and closed. Funeral home invoice, pending to be paid from estate. Burial permit, filed, fee included in funeral invoice. Locksmith, reimbursed by estate. Pick-up sale, deposited. Net proceeds split 50-50. I printed the summary, attached scans of everything, and emailed the packet to Victoria first. Then I sent a PDF to the family thread, subject line, estate interim accounting.pdf, with a short note, sharing for transparency. This is not for debate. It's the current accounting. I'll update as bills are paid. Maria replied with a simple, thank you. Roman sent a thumbs up. One aunt wrote, appreciate the clarity. No one else said anything. In the morning I picked up the cashier's check and slid it under a clear sleeve with a copy of the sale receipt and the line that showed the locksmith reimbursement. I met Victoria in the bank lobby. She looked the documents over and nodded. Fine, she said, and took the check. No speech, just paper changing hands. I went home and filed a fresh copy of the corrected obituary in the manila folder with Dad's shop notebook, the one with talk specs and little notes like grease the joints before winter in his block letters. For a second I saw his hand over mine again, heavy and warm. That afternoon, a text from Victoria. Let's do brunch this weekend. Reset. I sat with it a minute. Then I typed, I'm not discussing the past over meals. For estate matters, let's keep everything in writing. I wish you well. Wow, she wrote back. I didn't reply. Boundaries don't clap back, they stand. I set the folder back in my lockbox and closed the lid. I answered an email from Francis with a scanned signature on the final acknowledgements. I watered my plant, paid my own electric bill, and turned off the porch light at Dad's house from the new smart switch Roman had installed last year. Small things right where they belong. That night, I didn't dream about alarms. I slept like a person whose lists matched the world.